All right, guys and girls, welcome to part one of our diet setup. For some of you, this is going to be very basic, probably a little bit boring, but for a lot of you that might be new to health and wellness, fitness, or may have never had much success with some long-term dieting, um, hopefully this will clear up some confusion, give you guys and girls the knowledge to make smart decisions and decipher through some of the different plans out there, spot some potential bullshit, and ways to avoid wasting your money and wasting time, effort, frustration, all of that stuff. All right. So, one of the biggest things that I like to tell my clients during a consult or as they begin their training, whether it's one-on-one or the group training, or if they're just a member of our gym and we're striking up a conversation on the gym floor or whatnot, what I really like to emphasize is if you're starting out on a meal plan, diet, whatever you want to call it, and it's not something that you see yourself being able to maintain for this next 6 months, the next year, the next 3, 4, 5 years, then it's probably not going to be the right plan for you. Okay. Now this talk is geared towards general population, not those of you that are competing in a physique competition or an athletic endeavor where you have to make weight. That is, for a temporary moment in time. But like I said, for people that are just worried about improving their health, their well-being, this is going to be a good place to start and not kind of get fooled by all the marketing out there and whatnot. But if it's something that you can't foresee yourself sticking to long-term, then you're probably not going to be successful with it. All right, just think about the dumb ass diets that are out there that you may have tried or know somebody that's tried, that at some point you just can't do it anymore. Okay, so whether it's the cabbage soup diet, God bless anybody that lived with you or worked with you in close proximity during that time frame. Cabbage soup diet, grapefruit diet, I think there was like an eggs diet, egg whites or hard-boiled eggs or whatever the case may be, or any of the other fad-ish diets out there. Okay, like I said, if it's not something that you foresee yourself sticking to long-term, then why even bother with it, right? And this is where a lot of times people yo-yo up and down. They start a diet, they stop a diet. My goal is for you to learn the right way, and that's for you on how to do this so you're not always starting and stopping. Okay, we can make smart decisions. All right. So the number one rule of our diet setup is we need to be able to adhere long term, okay, which I would say would be the rest of your life, okay, at least making smart choices, and be able to, sustain it, right? So adhere to it, follow it, stick it out for a long time. And this needs to be with stuff that you like. If you come to me and you are super motivated and want to lose 15, 20, 30 pounds, and I put you on nothing but chicken, broccoli, tilapia, brown rice, all the typical diet foods or bodybuilding foods or whatnot, and you hate tilapia, maybe if you're super sadistic, you might follow it for a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, whatever, or maybe 8 weeks, and then it's game over, and you're gonna pig out as soon as it's over, just like you got out of quarantine or concentration camp, right? Like you've never seen food before in your life. I've had clients that have done this, that have dieted for a show. They might have lost 15, 20 pounds going into the show, and then within a week, they're 15, 20 pounds back up to their starting weight or more than it never looked like they were, you know, they don't even look like they were the same person. So if you're not picking foods that you like, if you're not picking stuff that you have access to, that you know how to cook and prepare, that's not going to make you a social outcast, that doesn't require you to bring Tupperware or a cooler to weddings, funerals, work meetings, whatever, you're probably not going to have success with this, okay? So we want to make sure that first and foremost, that whatever you set up for yourself is something that you enjoy, something that you know how to prepare, and like we talked about, something that you can stick to long term. That is going to be the main determining factor whether you're successful or not, okay? Once that is taken care of, the next topic I want to cover is something that has, these two things kind of go hand in hand, these next two topics, and there's a lot of misinformation about it. A lot of people want to kind of con you, I guess is probably the most accurate way to describe this, into believing that their way is the right way. Look, there's a gazillion different ways to make progress towards your health and wellness. But we want to make sure we're making decisions with the right information and decisions that are going to help us and not just line the pockets of somebody trying to sell you a quick fix or supplement or whatever the case may be, okay? So for most people, when we talk about diet setup, they're focused on weight loss. So our big thing is we want to focus on weight loss compared to fat loss. And those are two separate things. You can lose weight without losing fat, okay? Let me repeat this. You can lose weight without losing fat. Or you can lose weight with the majority of your weight loss coming from other than fat, and that would be if we're losing muscle tissue. And usually that happens in the female population because they tend to favor doing excessive amounts of cardio, and they tend to aggressively diet with too few of calories too soon, okay? So we got to remember that weight training coupled with adequate protein is going to build muscle tissue. And when you're dieting and you're trying to lose fat, weight training will also keep the muscle tissue, all right? Which is why some places that put you on a super low calorie diet will instruct you not to weight train. And there's probably two reasons for that. One, I would like to think this is the main reason, but it probably isn't, is what builds muscle keeps muscle. So with weight training, you're going to keep the muscle tissue you have. The problem with that in this scenario is that if you're holding on to muscle tissue, that's less weight that you're losing, right? So if I have a client that comes to me and we lose, say, 5 pounds of fat, but we're able to put on a pound or 2 of muscle, that is only going to be 3 pounds that are reflected on the scale. If they go somewhere else that instructs them to aggressively diet, do a bunch of cardio, and not weight train, they may lose a little bit more weight, 5, 6, 7 pounds, whatever the case may be, which on paper, it appears that it's a more successful weight loss period, but the majority of their weight loss, well, a good percentage of their weight loss could come from muscle tissue as well. So it doesn't, the scale only kind of tells one side of the story, right? So we're not going to be so much concerned with weight loss in terms of scale weight. Obviously, if someone is 50, 60, 70 pounds overweight, we're going to need to see that number come down to get them in a healthy range. But for some of you that think you may have to lose 10 or 15 pounds, you may feel and look your best losing 5 to 8 and putting on 4, 5, 6, 7 pounds of muscle, okay? So this will kind of get in more depth later on in another video, but be aware of weight loss versus fat loss, and that it's not the same thing per se, and people can kind of manipulate the numbers to make it look more beneficial and more effective than it really is, okay? So with that being said, how do we figure out what our body weight is doing, and how do we lose weight? All right, well, there's only 4 ways if you count alcohol to get calories, right? So we can get our calories through protein, fat, and carbohydrates. And some food items have one of those, and those are considered macros. So protein, carbs, and fat are considered macros, short for macronutrients. Alcohol is not considered a macronutrient, but it is a way that we can get calories in. So we can only get our calories through protein, carbs, and fat, and those are considered our macros. So when you hear people talk about macro dieting, typically they refer to this and they track their food, okay? So some food can have 1 macro, some foods can have 2 combinations of them, whatever the case may be. So say for example, a steak. A steak is going to have our protein, and it's also going to have our fat. Something like a chicken breast is going to have probably 98% of their calories coming from protein, very little from fat, okay? Yogurt, you might be able to get fat-free yogurt where it'll have protein and carbohydrates, some sugar in it, or you may get a yogurt that has less protein, and it's one of the yogurts that have a lot of fruit, or some of the flip cups in it that you add Oreos or Twix or whatever the case may be, and it's going to have a lot more carbohydrates in it, okay? These are the only ways that you can get calories, all right? So when people say that they cut carbs out after 6 o'clock and they lost weight, the reason that they lost weight is because they ended up by creating a deficit, right? So our next big topic is to lose weight, we need to create a deficit. And that means we need to take in less calories than we burn. So we can either lower the amount of food that we take in, or we can increase our output. We can walk more, we can start adding some strength training, we can start adding some cardiovascular, maybe we take our dog for an extra walk, maybe we take a spin class, maybe we're spending some time on the step mill or the elliptical or whatever the case may be. So you can either eat less, move more, or do a little bit of both, all right? And that will create the deficit. If you are not losing weight, you are not in a deficit. There's really, unless you have something seriously medically wrong with you, if weight loss is not occurring, you are not in a deficit. So if you begin an exercise program and you're up 4 or 5 pounds, you didn't gain 4 or 5 pounds of muscle, okay? For any of us that have been lifting for any appreciable amount of time, we would love to be able to gain 4 or 5 pounds of muscle in a short period of time. It just doesn't happen, okay? So if you are not in a deficit, you are not losing weight. There's no real nice way to say this to kind of save your feelings. But if this is not occurring, something is wrong. You are eating too much for your activity level, okay? So to create a deficit is kind of like our budget for household bills, right? So you want to know what you're spending and what you're intaking, all right? The best way to do this is by tracking your food. And as time goes on in upcoming videos, I'll show you guys how to transition away from tracking so you're not worried about logging your food all the time. But in the beginning, we need to track or log your food, all right? It really is the only way to do this. I feel very confident in my nutrition knowledge. I've taught at the college level. I'm always learning new stuff, but I feel like I got a pretty good handle on nutrition. I know that if I don't track my food, I kind of did a little experiment about a year or two ago, and I was off about 600 calories a day. Okay, now a pound is equal to 3,500 calories. So very easily I could gain probably a pound and a half a week by not tracking. Now it's not to scare you, it's just to say that if you're not where you want to be in terms of your health and wellness and your weight, it's probably because you aren't working hard enough in terms of maybe weight training, and this is probably more likely, you probably don't know enough about nutrition, and that's not a bad thing. This is what these lessons are going to be, is pointing you guys in the right direction. Okay, so there's a couple free apps out there that work really well. MyFitnessPal is a free app. There is a premium add-on for that. I would advise against paying for that. You can do everything you need to with just the tracking. And then First Form has a great My Transformation app that does offer some exercise help as well. And you can log your food in there too. There is a free and there is an upgraded one. The upgraded one comes with a little bit more stuff. I can go over that with you if you want to private message me, and I can give you the benefits of that. But the MyFitnessPal one will work just fine, and it's free. Okay, so I would work on tracking your food for the next 4, 5, 6, 7 days. All right, that is going to give you awareness. Awareness then allows us to kind of dive into, okay, this is what we're doing, this is what we need to do. All right, so it's MyFitnessPal, track your food. It's very easy. For stuff that you eat that has a barcode on it, it's got a barcode scanner. You can scan it real quick and it enters it. For other stuff that doesn't have a barcode, you just search in the search function, whether it's an apple, banana, whatever the case may be. Find what food most closely resembles what you're consuming and enter it. If you cook a lot and make your own recipes, you can enter it once into your personal file, and then if that's a recipe that you have often, it's there. You can go back and recall it and enter it in throughout the, whenever you consume it next. And after you do that for 3-4 weeks, whatever, you're going to have a pretty good database of the stuff that you eat. Okay, most of us like to think that we eat quite a bit more exotic than we really do. That's typically not the case. I find that most people eat the same 15 or 20 foods most of the time, or some variation of it. So once you get that in, that gives us a very good starting point to take it to the next level in terms of how we're going to attack setting up our diet. So just a quick recap for part 1. How do we do this? Pick something that you like, that you can stick to, that is going to drastically increase your rate of success. Look back at all the diets that you have tried or that your friends have tried over time and you haven't been successful with, or you haven't been able to stick to them long term. It probably is because it had you doing a bunch of stupid shit, right? And that's not to pick on you guys. We've all maybe made some decisions that, looking back on, we wish we would have done differently. And that's why this time is going to be different. You guys are going to have the knowledge available to you to make some good decisions, okay? So pick something that you can stick to long term. Stuff that you like, stuff that you have access to, stuff that you know how to cook, stuff that isn't going to make you a social outcast. If your child is allergic to peanut butter, we probably don't want to be eating peanut butter 3 or 4 times a day, okay? Maybe if your spouse is and you don't like them, no, I'm just kidding. I would say consume a lot of peanut butter. All right, as time goes on, we are going to learn the difference of weight loss and fat loss and why the scale can kind of fuck with you, okay? So just kind of keep that in the back of your mind. Learn and remember that the only way we can get calories are through protein, carbs, and fat, and alcohol, but protein, carbs, and fat are considered our macros. So if you ever hear of people talking macro dieting, or if it fits your macros, this is what they're referring to, okay? Realistically, every diet out there relies on macros because you're getting calories from somewhere, and it's from here. Any diet that puts you in a deficit, you will lose weight. Whether or not you're losing the weight from water, muscle, or fat is another thing, and we'll get into that. But any diet that puts you in a weight loss, you could eat nothing but ice cream every day, and if you're burning off 2,500 calories and you're taking in 2,000, you're creating a deficit of 500 calories a day, you will lose weight, okay? But we want to focus on whether it's weight loss or fat loss. So at some point we got to create a deficit if our goal is to lose weight, and we got to create a surplus if our goal is to gain weight and gain muscle tissue, okay? How are we going to know where we are in all of this? We are going to find a way to track our food and our intake. I don't expect you to do it long term and for the rest of your life. We will cover how to transition out of that, but in the beginning, especially if you don't know what the hell you're doing, which is fine, we're going to need to track, okay? So that is going to be enough for part one for today. I'll work on getting those other videos up. Obviously, I'm not allowed to work given the current circumstances. So I should be able to get, parts 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever up in the next couple days. But this is to recap. If you need anything, please let me know. I'll be happy to point you in the right direction. If there is a case where I don't have a good answer for you, I have a pretty good network of friends and colleagues that are much smarter than I am. I will do my best to find an answer for you, okay? So stay safe, and if you guys need anything, let me know. Thank you.